Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And look, let's keep it honest, let's keep it a buck 50. I know a lot of people out there just in the internet in general has been ravaging on and on and on. Old man yelling up into the clouds saying, hey, everything associated with the Switch 2 is way too expensive. Obviously, you had the whole entire thing with potentially the prices going up thanks to all these tariffs and stuff, thanks to, other worldly leaders and stuff like that, that's influencing just the economic marketplaces and stuff like that, to where, hey, there was a chance that the Switch 2 could have gone up in price. Thankfully, it's holding at the 450 as of the point of I'm actually recording this thing right now. So people getting it at launch should be okay though. However, some other things like Amiibo prices, they gone up. All the hardware and accessory, not the hardware itself, but the accessories just in general. Like if you want to get the camera, the Pro Control, all of that stuff has gone up though. So some things gone up, some things not as much. It's not as bad as what it could be, at least for the point right now though. But obviously the $80 game with Mario Kart World has just been rubbing people off the wrong way. All the misinformation and stuff like that. People taking word from one site that might be based in Europe and running it as if like it was the gospel or something like that for another marketplace here in North America. A lot of people have been taking a back seat in terms of all the positivity, and they've just been letting all these negative things go out the way though. I talked about everything from the good, the bad, and the ugly here on this channel though. But I wanted to kind of shed some light on some of the good things, because believe it or not, in less than like a month and a half away, we're gonna have the Switch 2 coming out in some kind of shape, form, or capacity. So for those that are lucky enough to be able to secure a pre-order, or happen to be lucky enough to walk into a store and be able to purchase one of these things, hey, you might be wondering what's on the docket in terms of all these new upcoming games. So in this one particular video, I just wanted to go through month by month, just go ahead and just saying, hey, these are the games you can look forward to coming out in the month of June, July, and so forth, all the way to the end of June. And this is all for first-party games, though, because there's a good slew of third-party games that's just going to be available on launch. But let's just focus on the side of Nintendo, and then we're going to compare it to, that stellar lineup year that we managed to have for the Nintendo Switch 1 back in 2017, though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Alright, so to kick things off, we know that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be coming out in the month of June 5th to be precise. And that's just going to be a good day for a lot of people, not necessarily for everybody though, but for those that can afford it or manage to secure a pre-order. I mean, hey, we've been waiting on a new console from Nintendo for like almost close to a decade. It's been the better part of almost 8 years at this given point though. However, on launch day for, first party games, if you're looking for something new to play, obviously the big marquee title is going to be Mario Kart World. Yes, it's going to be $80 for those that want to purchase it physically or digitally separate, or if you get lucky enough with the bundle, then you're effectively getting it for $50 added on to that $450 MSRP of the Switch 2 itself. That's going to be the major marquee title. However, the minor title it's going to be somewhat similar or akin to like a 1-2 switch that we had with the Nintendo Switch 1. With Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, that's also going to be available on June 5th as well though. That's only going to be a digital only game that you're going to be able to purchase off the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop. And it's going to be selling for about $10 off of that market. So it's like, hey, if you just want to kind of get that Welcome Tour stuff, still a little salty that that's not necessarily a packing game, but I digress. But that's not the only two Switch 2 related games you're going to have on launch day like that. Just a reminder, for those that happen to have the NSO Plus expansion pack tier, you're going to be able to have the GameCube Classics library available at launch. And with that, you have Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, as well as F-Zero GX. So you're going to have those 3 additional games to add on to your sleigh as well. But you're not done with first party just yet, because you'll also manage to have the Switch 2 editions of a couple of other games with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, if you happen to be one of those people out there that already had that game either physically or digital, and if you already have the NSO Plus expansion pack tier, then guess what? You don't have to pay an extra penny worth nothing. You get those 2 Switch 2 editions with the better frame rates and the resolutions and everything, along with the Zelda notes as well. You get all of that added in as well. So if you want to take a break from Mario Kart World or something like that, then hey, you have a couple of other meaty single player games available with those 2 Zelda games respectively. However, if you're just a die-hard fan or whatever though, or you just happen to be somebody that just never picked up Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom at this point, you will be able to purchase those from retailers as well, for $70 for Breath of the Wild, as well as $80 for Tears of the Kingdom, because remember, it's just like a plus 10 extra dollars added for both of those games from the original MSRPs of the Switch 1 edition of those games. So that's all you have to look forward to in the month of June. Now let's go ahead and spin it on over to the month of July, because July, man, my boy DK, he's coming up out of the grave and he's going to welcome y'all with his presence, new redesign and all. I'm not necessarily a super big fan of it though, but there's been some shots of DK in this new design. I'm like, okay, I can dig that. I can rep this new Donkey Kong game. Look, we've been waiting on a new DK game for almost the better part of a whole entire stinking decade plus. So hey, I'm going to be there day one when this game comes out on July the 17th. And that's going to be your major marquee Switch 2 title for that month. However, if Donkey Kong doesn't somehow manage to float your boat, I don't understand why it wouldn't. But if you're wanting to have something to gather up the crew together, whether it be friends or family alike, whether it be locally or over online, then yes, Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV is going to be coming out on July the 24th though. And obviously, if you already have this game already with Super Mario Party Jamboree, then hey, pay the extra $20 upgrade and you get a whole slew of different other mini games included, everything featuring the camera mode, the new mouse mode, and everything else in between. Hey, there's more mini games galore to be able to play with Super Mario Party Jamboree. And that's all we have slated for the month of July. Now let's go ahead and spin it over to the month of August. One of these titles, we got a confirmed release date. The other one, I'm shooting in the dark on this one based upon, like the seasons or like when they say that they want to shoot as a window frame though. I'll get to that here in just a second though, because on August the 28th, Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World will be dropping out on that day. So once again, if you want to pay the $20 because you already own Kirby and the Forgotten Land, yes, you can pick up just that off of the eShop and then pop in your Switch cartridge or your digital game you already own, and then boom, you got all that extra DLC for the Star-Crossed World aspect though. May dabble with that. I had Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I hadn't necessarily managed to beat the game. The 30 FPS was just kind of to me though, but I don't know, I might just pay the extra 20 and just go ahead and just try to finish out that game. I don't know. But also another game that's supposed to come out some point in the summertime block. That's what Nintendo has said. Drag X Drive is supposed to be releasing out on the Nintendo Switch 2. That's going to be your big major marquee title that I have a good feeling that might release in the month of August. Now, here's the reason why I think that. Because with them saying in the time frame of summer, typically for summer for Nintendo is June, July, or some point in August. If you already look at June, look, we have Mario Kart World, the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, those Switch 2 editions, all releasing in June. That's way too much. They ain't gonna throw another new IP on top of all of that. You look over here in July, you already had Donkey Kong Bonanza and you had Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. And in both of those situations, you have at least one major marquee Switch 2 title accompanied with either 1 or 2 Switch 2 editions. I don't think they're going to add any extra more on top of that. So in the same likewise manner, like with July, where you had Donkey Kong being the new game and Super Mario Jamboree being the Switch 2 edition, I think they're going to run that back in the month of August, where you'll have Drag X Drive maybe coming out on August the 14th. I'll go ahead and throw that date out there as my prediction for it, though. And then obviously 2 weeks later on the 28th confirmed, we'll have the Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World. So that's where I'm kind of leaning on in terms of all of that. Now let's go ahead and look in the month of September. This is where things get really dicey in terms of like where we can predict when these games are going to come out in certain said months. But just going off of the information that I have and just kind of looking at past trends, I feel like at this point of the game, we're going to have at least one major Switch 2 game dropping every single month. There's enough titles in the pipeline, given that 2025 window frame that Nintendo has set with the majority of all of these games, where I do feel like we should be able to get at least one major Switch 2 game. A couple of the games also going to get Switch 1 editions of those games if you just happen to only still own the Switch 1. you'll be able to cover it for one way or the other. So in the month of September, I have a feeling that Metroid Prime 4 may very well happen to be the month that that game happens to drop, because we do know it's only confirmed for 2025, but out of this and along with the other game we're going to talk about in the next month, this is one of those games where they managed to show it off extensively in the Treehouse live footage that we managed to get shortly after that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that we managed to get. So I was like, hey, based upon all that footage, it looks like the game's raring to go. All the footage they were showcasing off was the game running at like 4K 60. We know there's going to be a performance mode with a 1080 120 and stuff like that. So I feel like just based on the footage we managed to get thus far, I feel like this game is very close to the point of release, but they probably don't want to get it overshadowed by like big games such as Mario Kart World, which honestly is going to be a system seller. We saw how many different copies were sold with 8 Deluxe. That ratio was like almost 45% of all Switch 1 users have that game. You don't want that to be flooded out with Metroid Prime 4, because already Metroid as a series, there's a cult fan base for it. Me, myself included. I love myself some Metroid though, but just in comparison to like what a Mario or a Donkey Kong game could sell, it pales in comparison. So I think they just kind of want to push all the marketing out for that first, before then finally giving us that release date, which they may very well give us that release date probably in a June Nintendo Direct or something like that, roughly around the time that E3 normally happens. So I'm saying September for Metroid Prime 4. Then we go ahead and look over here at the month of October. I think this is where we're going to see Kirby Air Riders happen to come out on the scene, because out of all the games that were showcased off in that Switch 2 Direct, it's the only one that we managed to get CGI trailer footage for, and we didn't get any gameplay footage whatsoever for this one though. So I'm thinking no matter what, Metroid Prime 4 has to come out probably before Kirby Air Riders, and then we'll have that game come out, because all we know is just 2025 as the release date. But I'm thinking October is close enough towards the end of the year without it being at the very last spot, because of some of these other games that we got window frames for, which we'll talk about here in a moment though. But yeah, not too much to go off of, but I feel like probably mid to late October, we'll probably get that game. Then in the month of November, that's when I think we're going to get Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, just a reminder, we know this is going to release on the Switch as well as the Switch 2. So I feel like November is going to be the perfect time spot for this, because look, every time a Pokemon company has to put out a game, with the exception of Pokemon Legends Arceus, because Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out literally like a couple of months within each other, the Pokemon company always likes putting out new Pokemon games for them to be like somewhat as a main series game in the month of November, outside of like spin-offs or whatever though. So the fact that they already confirmed that it's going to be coming out in the second half of the year, you might as well just go ahead and stick that sucker in that November time frame spot. That way you can probably go ahead and move more Nintendo Switch 2 systems in that time frame, because look, Mario Kart is already out. You probably will get another resurgence around that holiday time frame though, but to have Mario Kart and to have a Pokemon game to push your holiday season quite well, I don't think you can script that mess any better for Nintendo in terms of this moving these systems off the shelves though. So that makes perfect sense to me, to be able to drop that game out in the month of November. And then lastly, I will think one of the very last games that we'll have to drop out, I think this next game will probably drop out within the first week, kind of similar to how Super Smash Bros. Ultimate happened to drop out in 2018 in that first week of December. In the same likewise manner, how like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 dropped out in the first week of December. I think we're going to have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, because right now it's just slated as winter. Now, out of all these games I mentioned before, this might be that one game that could slide into 2026, but I'm fingers crossing it that they can somehow try to keep this within the 2025 cycle. I don't know, it just all depends on that third-party collaboration that they have with the Warriors team, just to see exactly when it could potentially come out though. I have a good feeling it could come out December. There's also a chance it might roll into January just to kind of kickstart off the next year though. I'm fingers crossing it that it could come out in December though. And that's basically all the titles that we have confirmed that are going to be big major Switch 2 games, or with a couple of them, Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA, that also have Switch 1 editions though, but they will have Switch 2 editions for them, that are going to be coming out in the year of 2025. So looking at it, June, Mario Kart World, the big major Switch 2 game. July, Donkey Kong Bonanza. August, a good chance Drag X Drive. September, a good chance Metroid Prime 4. October, a good chance Kirby Air Riders. November, a good chance Pokemon Legends ZA. And in December, a good chance of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. So you're going to have all of those big major games coming out every single month. And in June, July, and August, you'll also have the Switch 2 editions for like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And who's to say we might get more Switch 2 edition games for a game like, I don't know, Luigi's Mansion 3 or Astral Chain or anything else that was a Switch 1 game, maybe to fill out the September, October, and November time slots. You never know with Nintendo. We'll just have to wait and see if they have another presentation slated at some point during like the month of June, during that summertime period though. But let's go ahead and compare all of these games to that crazy 2017 lineup right here, because in 2017, remember, we had Breath of the Wild and 1-2 Switch. That's very akin and very similar to what we have in with Mario Kart World, along with the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Then in April, we had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. May, there wasn't really a lot going on. June was ARMS. July was Splatoon 2. In August, it was like a little bit collab, first party with third party with Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Then in September, we had Pokken Tournament DX. Once again, with another first party, third party collaboration with Fire Emblem Warriors. October was Mario Odyssey. November, even though that wasn't a Switch game, it still was a major Pokemon game, so I'm drawing the parallels with it, because that's when we had Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon on the 3DS. And then in December, you had Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So every single month, roughly, give or take, with the exception of like maybe a couple of months, we managed to have a big, major Nintendo Switch game coming out for the Nintendo Switch in the year of 2017. That was a wild year, and I was all over the place. I was scooping up games. I remember picking up Breath of the Wild. I remember getting Mario Kart, ARMS, Splatoon 2. I remember picking up Mario & Rabbids, but it was like much later or whatever though. I remember Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like all of those were great, stellar games though. So just looking at all of them, there's a lot of parallels in 2017 that we're going to be getting in 2025 this year. However, you know, with it being 2017, the Switch dropped out in that month of March. I mean, it had a runtime about almost 10 months in comparison with the Switch 2 dropping out in the month of June. So it's only going to have like a runtime of 7 months for the first almost a calendar year though. But even still, looking at the Switch 2 lineup, there's still room for them to drop a major Switch 2 game along with some specialized Switch 2 editions every single month. So I still think the lineup that we have right now for 2025 is still going to be pretty good. It might not be necessarily as crazy like what we had a 3D Mario and a 3D Zelda, whereas with Switch 2, I mean, we don't have the next 3D Mario yet. That might be 2026. And shoot, we're coming right off the heels of Tears of the Kingdom. It's going to be a hot minute since we're going to have a new 3D Zelda or whatever though. But to have a brand new Mario Kart that's not a deluxe or a port from like the Wii U available day one on the system though, that's just going to do wild numbers just in it of itself though. But yeah, overall, this lineup right here is nothing to scoff at from Nintendo. So man, looking at my big long list of all those Switch 2 games, there's a lot to really look forward to for the Nintendo Switch 2, whether it's the big major new games with Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, games like those, along with Switch 2 editions for like the Kirby Forgotten Land or the Mario Kart, or I said Mario Kart, Super Mario Party Jamboree, along with like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. There's a lot of stuff to be looking forward to for all these upcoming Switch 2 games for the year of 2025. I wouldn't say necessarily it's as good as 2017, but I think it's, gosh, probably the best it could be, with it being a much more powerful and a much more capable system. And this is the first time Nintendo's actually going through, with the help of maybe DLSS with NVIDIA and the stuff that they got incorporated within the hardware of the Switch 2, where they're actually able to putting out 4K games, and maybe even more consistently putting out games that are going to be able to run at 120 frames per second. That shoot, I don't even really get to see that much, even with like the PlayStation or whatever though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below, what games are you anticipating the most first party wise from Nintendo? I know a lot of people's gonna be Mario Kart. Some people might be Donkey Kong. I know there's going to be a good cult fan base. A lot of people really looking forward to the next Kirby Air Riders. Like, who would have thought we would have had a whole bunch of that? I know some people are going to be excited to play Wind Waker finally. It's not the HD version, though, mind you, but it's still a version of Wind Waker out there, though. But let me know what you're most excited to look forward to the most down in the comments. But that's going to basically do it in terms of today's video, though. So if you really like this, make sure you're going to hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.